Adam, welcome to the Rain or Shine podcast. I'm super excited to connect, talk about all things Trail Hub, but also your journey as an entrepreneur. I know you're also a new dad, which we were just jamming about. You have a 1 year old and you were mentioning a crazy night of sleep. So, yeah, just excited to dig into who you are and what lights you up. So, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, let's start with some rapid fire. You mentioned that you were up a few times last night. So, how do you get your energy revved up when you maybe haven't had a full 8 hours of sleep?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, for me, I'm pretty big on schedule and time blocking. So, for the most part, I try and stick to my schedule as much as I possibly can. Um, and so, yeah, when you have a rough night or whatever, I just stick to that schedule. So, first thing this morning was a quick workout just to get the body moving. I work out pretty much every day, first thing in the morning. Some you know weeks I'll take a day off here and there, but yeah, that's usually priority number one, and then followed by a good meal, and then some quick family time, and that's it.
I feel like that's such a through line of high performing entrepreneurs is that, yeah, sometimes things don't go according to plan, but we have things scheduled. And as best we can, we try to show up to the commitments we made to ourselves because those commitments, like your workout, like cooking a good healthy meal versus going through a drive-through, those help you to feel your best so that you can perform in your role as a business owner and really show up and do the job that you want to do in a day. So, yeah, it's just such a good reminder that sometimes we don't feel like going to the gym, but you still
Yeah.
do it anyways. Maybe you do a shorter workout or it's not your best where you're hitting PRs, but you know what habits make you the best version of yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm big on energy, and so one of the reasons why I work out first thing in the morning is just to like raise that frequency first thing in the morning, and I can typically carry that into the day, and it helps me start the day in the right way, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I find it very valuable, but yeah.
Has this always been something that you kind of had the enjoyment for? Were you an athlete growing up? Did you have to build the muscle of getting to the gym or working out every day? Or was this just something that always felt natural? Because I feel like a lot of our listeners, they know they need to put their health as a priority, especially as a business owner. But
Yeah.
sometimes the day can pass and it's like, oops, I missed the gym again. Oh no, I didn't work out for a month. So yeah, how did you build that muscle?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, I've always been an athlete. I've kind of split my time between two worlds, so to speak. I've always been a high performance athlete. Started in professional, mountain bike racing. My wife is a two-time Olympian. But then in addition to that, helping her, build her career over the years, working with some pretty high profile brands, and I built a coaching business myself as well, to kind of fund my professional racing career, because at the time sponsorship was quite difficult. Um, that kind of led to another world, which was the business world. And so, yeah, I've always been kind of split between high performance athletics and business, so to speak. And um, actually, when I was pursuing professional athletics, I was fairly successful in helping my wife Emily build her career as a two-time Olympian, and that led to working with like some high-profile brands. And there was the coaching aspect, so helping her with on-bike performance, but then there was also the marketing aspect, helping her you know build her kind of online profile with content marketing. And that led to me working in tech for I want to say upwards of seven years. So yeah, started working in tech. I think I came on. It was a SaaS company. Came on as like employee number 15, and over the course of 7 years, we grew the company to 175 plus staff. It ended up, being a successful founder exit. So I was really close to the executive team throughout my entire time there, and really got to understand what it meant to build towards a founder exit and the pressures that come with like reporting to a board and all those things that come with a high performing environment. So I guess it was kind of I've always been in that world, like both on the athletic side, the pressures
Yep.
of being a high performance athlete, but then also on the business side, uh, the pressures that come with really performing at that level too. Uh,
Hmm.
so yeah, I think I've just built that muscle over time, and it's really just become part of who I am. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. This is only something I've recently started thinking about, but I feel like there are so many parallels between the world of athletics, high performance athletics specifically, and entrepreneurship. And it's just like, I think that's why with entrepreneurs, a lot of them are pursuing either like Ironmans or they were ex-Olympians or they used to train really competitively for something because it's that muscle of like showing up daily for the
yeah,
grind even when you don't want to, even when things aren't going according to plan, because that is business too, right? Like, I don't
yeah,
wake up every day and say, oh my God, I can't wait to, edit a podcast or edit my Google ads today. But it's like, that the reps all count and that's the work you put in to hopefully achieve the big payoff, the big outcome, the win, the podium. So there's just, I don't know if you think about this too, just the parallels between athletics and entrepreneurship.
yeah, definitely. I think, I've always contemplated this question, but I think like a lot of athletes in general are pretty entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
as like a foundational component because like as an athlete, there's a big visionary component, no different than entrepreneurialism. You're essentially you have this vision for yourself, and then you're kind of stretching your actions on a daily basis to reach toward that vision. So you're stretching who you are as a person in
Hmm.
order to achieve these outcomes or potentially create products or services that don't even exist. And so I think those two worlds collide for that reason. You kind of have to have that vision in your head before you can essentially become that person.
Hmm. Hmm. I want to double tap on something that you mentioned. You said that during the time where you were supporting your wife, who was an Olympian, competitive athlete, you encouraged her to start kind of her content marketing and build a brand for herself. And I kind of just had this light bulb moment because so many of our listeners, they're a physiotherapist or they are, they run a clinic or something like that. And they know that like they need to be more visible to step into the next level of business and to start building a platform, not just hiding in the four walls of their office per se. Can you just kind of speak to, I guess, the importance of many professions building that public profile, creating more than, just or doing more than just like showing up for their craft?
Yeah.
But also like highlighting that and filming it and sharing it forward and building a brand and becoming a creator, which they probably don't identify as. So yeah, why were you passionate about doing that for your wife?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I've always been passionate about just content marketing in general.
Hmm.
I've always been a little bit creative in that regard, but I think, for businesses and individuals, content is really at the forefront of everything nowadays. And even as a business, it's so difficult to cut through the noise to get enough, eyeballs on your product or your service, so to speak. And it really does take like a very multi-channel approach in most cases. And
Hmm.
if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or an athlete, these things really, really do matter in how you show up online. I mean, um, we're a hospitality business here at Trail Hub, but really, since I came into the business, what I've been building is really been primarily digital marketing based. So I think, it goes without saying, like that digital marketing and that online presence is so critical, whether it's like, you know, you're driving to a single source website and then converting that traffic into a conversion from a product or a service perspective, or if you're simply just trying to build awareness for your personal brand, to take the next leap into some sort of growth stage that you're planning for. But yeah, the
Yeah.
content marketing is critical.
Yeah, I actually heard one of my mentors, I forget exactly what she said, but she told me more eyeballs solve most of your business problems,
Yeah,
right? It's like when you
yeah,
really think about it, a lot of it bubbles down to we just need more eyes on the product and then figure out how to convert better and all that. But it's like more visibility is not going to hinder your business or your, career, whatever that's in. It's actually going to help you grow and expand and make new connections and land opportunities that otherwise may not have been possible. So, yeah, I think it's such an important conversation to dig into of the just importance of creatorship if you're able to add that on to your career. So, yeah, super fascinating.
yeah, and it truthfully, it does take a lot of impressions to squeeze down into a conversion. So like,
Yep.
I'll use TrailHub here as an example, but we spend quite a bit on marketing annually. To date, it's been upwards of 10% of gross sales. So we have
Yep.
quite a healthy marketing budget, but that budget then gets squeezed down into, I think in 2025, we did 375,000 website visits. Uh,
Mm,
that translated into converting 10% into customers. And
yep.
so that's pretty high for a hospitality business, but the reality is most businesses only convert website traffic at around 2%, two and a
Hmm.
half percent, depending on what, whether we're talking B2B or B2C. But it just goes without saying, like how much, impressions you need in order to then translate into website traffic, which then translates into a form fill or a conversion at a product or service level. And uh, yeah, there's a lot of noise to cut through nowadays, and it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very honest and true statement, and we're definitely gonna dig into that a little bit more. First, you've actually mentioned Trail Hub a couple times. I alluded to it in my pre-intro before you and I
Mhm.
started chatting. But can you give us a quick rundown for someone who's never been to Trail Hub before and they're like, okay, what is this Trail Hub that they keep talking about? Paint us a
Yeah.
picture. What is this place?
Yeah, so Trail Hub is an events and recreation destination located in Durham Region, Ontario. We're smack dab center in a 6,000 acre parcel of conservation forest. Our property is 142 acres, and we have a restaurant on site. We have a bike shop on site. We have trails, a bike park on site. We do upwards of 100 weddings annually. We host upwards of 24 plus corporate private events annually. And yeah, so we're an events and recreation destination located in Durham Region, Ontario.
Amazing. Um, can you share a little bit of kind of the origins of the space? Like, what was this before it was Trail Hub? Was it always a destination for people to ride and hike and enjoy? Was this like private land before? Where did this come from?
Yeah, so it formerly was a ski hill. It was actually known as
Oh,
Skyloft
got
for pretty much all of its dating back to its inception. So it's always been a ski hill. And then my father-in-law and mother-in-law acquired the property right on the tail end of COVID. The
cool.
property had went into receivership or power of sale, and they acquired it on the tail end of COVID. Did a bunch of renovations to kind of bring it up to speed. I didn't. That was April of 2021. I didn't step in until May of 2023. And yeah, since May of 2023, we've had insane growth, which has largely been led by attributed to the marketing aspect. It's been a lot of marketing led growth. Yeah, triple digit growth year over year, uh, going from like 2024 to 2025, we had 75% year over year revenue growth. The year before that, 23 to 24 was like 170% year over year revenue growth. So
Wow.
this year we'll do 50% year over year revenue growth. But truthfully, we're starting to kind of max out the operational capacity to the business to some degree.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at other avenues to continue adding value to the property, adding value to the business. My father-in-law has been very focused on adding cabins to the property.
Cool.
So we've went through all the pre-con studies with the township of Uxbridge and some of the other municipal kind of stakeholders, but good chance we'll be breaking ground in 2027 and adding 15 kind of eco luxury cabins to the property.
Mm.
So that'll add another big chunk of revenue to the business, and just open up a lot of like, I guess, cross promotion between all the products and services. Like I think probably people see us online and they're like, wow, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're doing a lot of things, but I think, this ecosystem of products will start to make more sense as the cabins come online in the future. So
Cool. Okay, I'm sure somebody just listened to what you just shared, especially about the numbers and the growth, and they're curious, like, what the heck did you do to achieve these growth numbers, which is incredible. So I want to actually just dig a little deeper. When you stepped in and you kind of assessed what was going on with Trailhub, the opportunity, what were some of those first few marketing initiatives? I don't know if it was paid ads or working with influencers or social media or building and leveraging your newsletter list or blogging and building SEO. What were some of those initial things that you saw really move the needle forward?
yeah, that's a good question. So it was everything when had stepped in. So
Yep.
um, when I started, for me in business, I always look at, okay, what are the core, products and services, and what's like the revenue model kind of backing them.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I started. And then from the revenue model, I kind of created a forecast. And from the forecast, I created a budget. And then from a budget, I created, what percentage is going to be spent on of gross sales on marketing.
Hmm.
And that really gave me like a good roadmap to plan for the future, as kind of a baseline. And from there, I went to work on, the website needed a full rebuild. We didn't really have any systems. So immediately we implemented HubSpot, we implemented Slack, we implemented payroll and a bunch of operational systems. And then once we got the website kind of rebuilt, in parallel, we were turning on a lot of the marketing channels. So I
Yep.
engaged Bloom, which is a paid media marketing agency out of Toronto, Montreal,
Hmm.
and got them going on the paid social, paid search side. We started scaling organic social as well. We had, like I said, we turned on HubSpot, so we started doing a bit of email marketing, and we really just got all the marketing channels kind of turned on and firing.
Yeah.
And it was actually surprising how much the revenue kind of lagged versus the at the pace in which the marketing turned on.
Mm.
But we really didn't see significant impact until it was like 6, 12 months after, the website was rebuilt, marketing channels were fully firing. And then we started seeing like a ton of momentum. I think I was a little bit short on our revenue targets year one. Um, Mainly because I was maybe a little bit overly optimistic and didn't really account for how much the sales would lag versus the marketing.
Yep.
But year two, we made up for that tenfold, and then year three again. So um,
Yep.
yeah, it was really a lot of things we turned on all simultaneously. But I will say, there was a lot of pain that came with that. When you increase customer volume to the point w in which we did, we pretty much broke our operations team. We had a
Yep.
lot of HR issues. There was just a lot that came with that increase in customer volume and demand. We had hard lessons in customer service,
Mhm.
um, hard lessons in you know not really having the financial systems in the business either, because when the business started, we started with a non-cloud-based uh, accounting software, and that in itself was really problematic when we have, upwards of 14 SaaS tools now to manage the business, and none of them speak to the actual accounting-based software. So that was a major problem and kind of roadblock in terms of truly measuring net margin in the business.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I will say it's been a lot of fun. Like
Yeah.
like I said, I think it's for most entrepreneurs, they'll understand like the where the comment, it's been a bit painful comes from, because really, as an entrepreneur, you're just creating something out of nothing in most cases.
Yeah.
And so you can have this roadmap or this blueprint, like the most perfect blueprint, but there's going to be challenges along the way. There's going to be problems that you didn't plan on having to solve for.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be iterative and evolutionary,
Yeah.
truthfully.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good reminder for everyone, no matter what stage they're at listening to this, because we could sit in our office, build out the perfect business plan, the perfect marketing plan, put together the perfect forecast or budget. But the truth is, once you get it in practice, once you really turn on all the taps, like there are going to be leaks. And sometimes you can't anticipate those. And I think part of what we sign up for as business owners is just problem solving on the fly, being okay with pivoting, being okay with the unexpected, because you can't predict where things will break down or at what level things will no longer work in the business. But you have to be willing to just say, all right, we'll figure this out. We'll find a better solution and this will make us stronger, right? It's exactly like you said. These are growing pains. You want to grow bigger, you're going to have to deal with bigger problems. And that has to excite us in the roles that we're in, not scare us off, right?
Yeah. 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 No, they're fun problems to solve for. Like, maybe it's just my experiences and just, my journey through life. But like at the end of the day, if failure is irrelevant unless it's like completely catastrophic. I think
Yeah.
that's Elon Musk's quote. But I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to keep that in the back of your mind. Like, although they may feel like big, insurmountable problems sometimes, like the
Mhm.
reality is that, a lot of those problems solely exist in your head and the pressures that you're putting on
True.
yourself to therefore solve them. And yeah, it just comes with the territory.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely have to be mentally tough to survive this game.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that one of the strategies that you've deployed through Trail Hub or your team has is that you're now hosting events where
Mhm.
hundreds of runners or cyclists will be coming to Trail Hub to participate in something. Can you kind of share a little bit of the behind the scenes of why you decided to start hosting things like that and how that has kind of impacted visibility of Trail Hub overall?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So going back to like when I first started, so when we looked at like what's kind of priority number one from a revenue perspective, we said, okay, here's what the business like currently can support from like an operational perspective. It was events, it was the restaurant, the things that already existed in the business that we didn't have to do major capital investments to kind of get going.
Yeah.
So the first 2 years was solely focusing on standing up the event side of the business, getting the restaurant going in the right direction. And kind of in the background, we were playing, we were building some trails. We were ideating about the bike shop because that was my father-in-law's original vision when he bought the property was for it to be a bike park.
Cool.
But, the bike park at the, it's going to take a lot more capital investment to really make it viable at this point in time. So we focused on the core products and services, got those going. And
Hmm.
now we're kind of shifting focus back towards the recreation aspect, which is what he really bought the property for. It's
Yeah.
what he's passionate about. So, now we've got the bike shop going. The e-commerce retail website's going to go live here probably February at the latest, first week of March. And we're adding on these recreation events to the calendar. Last year we started with the whole enchilada, which was a trail running race. This year we're adding a bike fest, which is going to, hopefully engage the bike community. Next year we'll add another recreation event. Um,
Well,
but really, we're adding these recreation type events to you know act as marketing to some degree to drive the recreation products and services that exist here at Trailhub. Because
mhm.
event marketing, truthfully, is like one of the best marketing spends a business owner can make for the most part because if you do it properly, you can, run the event at a break even or perhaps a profitable net margin. But then you're also getting the content and the awareness out of the event itself, which is then driving the business forward. So it's kind of like, killing two birds with one stone, so to speak.
Yep.
And that's kind of our approach on it. Not only does it align with, the original vision of what the property was acquired for, uh,
Yep.
it's helping drive some of the core products and services that we offer and will continue to
Hmm.
expand on here. So, and they're a lot of fun too. They're a lot of work, but
Yeah.
they get the community engaged. They're a ton of fun to execute on. It brings everyone together. You learn a lot about the team. They're just overall like a great way to um, add on like some incremental revenue to the business while kind of supporting other products and services.
Yeah. So true. And you're right. Like anyone who's ever hosted events before will agree with the fact that it's so much work, but yet we keep doing them because it's fun, it's meaningful work, it's so great to see the community gather together and to create experiences for people, right? And
Mhm.
I think experiences are transformative. They trigger emotions in people that can't be replicated through content or a website photo. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just so impactful. And I always like think back to some of my first interactions with brands that I still use today. And a lot of them happened at like trade shows or at the end of a race finish line. I was given a sample of electrolytes and then I just bought them for the next 5 years and didn't even really question it. And I think it's because of that heightened emotional experience and being able to interact and engage and meet the founder or the team. It just is a whole different level of becoming like a brand evangelist that you can't replicate online.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's one case study specifically that I keep in the back of my mind, but it's BPN, they're a supplement company, and they did I forget what the event itself was called, but it was down in Texas. It was a 24-hour 4 mile lap running event. And I think it was called like Just One More. But long story short, I think the event cost them upwards of $100,000 to produce, but
Yep.
the media impressions and the awareness they got from the event, all the athletes live streaming it right on site, they were live streaming it, all the follow-up content they got out of it,
Yep.
how it brought the community together from an experiential standpoint, like you say. I think it was like 10x ROI on the event itself. Like it was absolutely like I say, a true case study of event marketing.
Yep.
And I think you're seeing a lot of brands, do this now, like Bandit Running, just
Yep.
did their event last year. I think there's other brands in the athletic apparel space that are crushing these experiential kind of community driven events that are actually acting as like product marketing and
Hmm.
creating brand equity for them in the space, which is
Yep.
really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned it already is just getting those like media impressions and getting content, right? It's like it actually like
Mhm.
brings your space or your brand to life in a way that often we can't replicate. So yeah, making sure you have good photography, good videography from the day is worth its weight in gold as well.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I want to get some just business advice from you and just tips you've learned along the way. So, I'm curious, what is a tool or an object or a ritual in your workday that you feel like you could not live without?
Uh, I would say calendar blocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, calendar blocking is a big one. I think it's really difficult, not only to cut through the noise on the marketing side as a business or an entrepreneur, but as like an operations leader or like a founder or a
Hmm.
leader in a business. It's really difficult to, channel your focus in the business because at any given time there's a list of 100 problems that you need to solve for, and I think it's really easy to get distracted in terms of what's priority, what's not priority. And that's common for all entrepreneurs and founders, I think. So for me, it's really calendaring, time blocking, trying to move through my day with intention, I think is really big. Having that plan and sticking to it with discipline. Like I say, going back to the start of our conversation, like that morning ritualistic workout. Um,
Yeah.
that's on my calendar. Having my family time on my calendar, having,
Yep.
time blocking for personal development, reading, learning,
Hmm.
listening to podcasts, that's on my calendar. Um, Getting really strategic with how you line up your meetings in a week.
Yeah.
Are you doing all your meetings, on one day of the week? Or are you just letting people book time on your calendar whenever? Because that gets really, really chaotic too. And now you're just kind of task or context switching from task to task to task.
Yep.
And so yeah, being strategic with how you book meetings on your calendar, when you're available, when you're not available. So
Mhm.
yeah, to answer your question, the calendar I'd say is one tool that I kind of live and die by, so to speak.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, and I think it's cool to hear you say, like, you don't just schedule your work priorities on your calendar. It's also your personal life, your personal development, your family. Like, if it's
Yeah,
important to you, it is on your calendar. You're not leaving it to chance or just hoping that the white space is filled with all the things that you say are, the priorities of your week. So that's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah. And also, such a good tip of not letting people book meetings anytime they want. I remember a couple of the first years I was in business, I just had a wide open calendar, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And it
Mhm.
was very quickly that I realized, like, this is so inefficient, right? So just having a different theme for each day. Maybe your Tuesday, Thursdays are for calls, or maybe it's just one day.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have days that are protected, you will just be context switching all day and not actually getting into a focused state. So,
Yeah, yeah. There's a quote from Alex Ramosi that I love, and he goes to say, "If everything matters, nothing does." And I always keep that in the
yeah.
back of my mind because when you think about it, it really is true. Like if everything is priority, then nothing's a priority.
Hmm.
And so you really have to be intentional with where you're putting your focus and your time
Hmm.
and your energy, because it's like the four burner theory. Like um, you know, on one quadrant of your life, it's like family. On another quadrant, it's work, finance. Another quadrant, it's health and well-being or fitness. And another quadrant, it's friends. And the four burner theory goes to say like you can really only do two exceptionally well.
Hmm.
And so by trying to do all four exceptionally well, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
And so it takes a lot of intention, both with your family time and your personal development time, and when you're focused on work or when you're focused on just, whether it's like a monthly finance meeting or, how you're queuing up these things in your calendar. I think really matter on a regular basis.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, so important. And something that I'm always trying to learn more about is how to be more efficient with the time that I have, right? And not ever wasting hours in the day. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
love that. Okay, final rapid fire question, maybe less rapid fire, but in terms of the state of marketing right now, I feel like a lot is changing. It's 2026 when we were recording this. Attention is fractured. There's so many different platforms to be on. People are returning to IRL events and wanting community marketing. From your perspective, like what is something that you're going to bet on for the next 12 months or so as a marketing strategy that's going to start to take off? And this could be applicable to anyone who's listening. Like where should we be focusing our time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the last year, what I've really been focused on is not just the multi-channel kind of media approach, but where I've been really channeling a lot of my focus is, and I'll just refer to it as elevating the brand.
Hmm.
Because, I'm in the belief that um, you know, the standards you hold the organization to are essentially the business you create, or the standards you hold yourself to is the life that you live.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so I really truly do believe that you constantly have to be raising the standards all the time. And I think the same goes for marketing. Um, by elevating the brand or elevating the marketing constantly, I think you're doing a positive service to the organization or the business that you're looking to grow because, in time, you're building brand equity, you're potentially attracting, the right audience or the right customer. Maybe you're attracting a higher paying customer. Uh,
Yep.
and so for me, that's really been my focus the last year, I'll say, because the multi-channel marketing, I don't think that's going anywhere anytime
Hmm.
soon. I think you have to show up in these meaningful ways across all channels. Um, you just need so many media impressions to then squeeze down into website traffic nowadays.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's changing, but I think, you know, consumers are really they're really investing in brands that they align with from I guess like a personal values, a core values perspective. So, if you start getting really clear on who you are as a brand and then elevating towards that, I think you're constantly uh, speaking to the people you really want to speak to. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like the
Yeah.
ultimate win at the end of the day, because not only if you narrow down in that regard, like your spend is going to get more efficient. There's gonna be a domino effect of all these positive outcomes that'll
Yeah.
that'll stem from that. Like I said, you'll get a higher paying customer potentially. You'll have more qualified leads.
Yeah.
It has such a cascading effect across the business. So, yeah, if I were to bet on one thing, I would say, yeah, elevate your brand, elevate your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So good. Love that. That's such a great spot for us to finish off. So, Adam, we could probably talk a whole lot longer about your path and Trailhub, but if somebody wants to connect with you, come visit Trailhub, or just send you a message about something that they learned today, where are the best places for them to continue to connect with you?
Yeah. So they can check out Trailhub at trailhub.ca. And if they wanted to connect with me, fairly active on LinkedIn. So just search Adam Morka LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as well, Adam Morka on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. I'm an open book when it comes to business and helping others kind of trial and their way through things. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I can't wait to eventually visit Trailhub. Hopefully, I'm queuing up an April, May trip, so I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to it. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. Thanks, Kelsey.